Dear poor people, poor Glen Loury, he just can't figure it out.
We're dying over here. They're dying in Chicago. They're dying in East St. Louis. They're dying in Oakland, California. We're dying over here in these schools that are producing kids who can't read. We're dying in these jails full of these young men whose humanity never had a chance to reach its full extent. You're gonna blame white people for that? I worry for my country. I worry for my people. In what might equality for African Americans actually consist? We do political theory in here, right? What is equality? What would it mean? Okay. I'm in a university. I'm looking around the university. We have an Africana Studies department, God love them. We have a diversity initiative, full-throated endorsement from the provost and from the president, a slew of deans who are responsible for overseeing this or that dimension of inclusion, diversity and inclusion. We're devoted to it. Go to the science lab, go to the School of Engineering. The paucity of African American faces in these places is not possible to ignore. What is that about? Okay. For my money, it's about the fact that an inadequate number of our youngsters are achieving the capacities of performance and function in those particular areas of human endeavor to penetrate these elite and exclusive institutions in numbers. And what is the narrative in response to that fact? The fact being, if you look at test scores, we're not supposed to talk about test scores. Test scores are a bad thing to talk about. If you look at the actual levels of achievement, you see huge disparities by race. If you look at the narrative for talking about the underrepresentation of African Americans, I speak now about Brown, I speak now about the physics department, or about the electrical engineering department, or about the applied mathematics department, and I speak about the paucity of black faces there. You take note of that. The basic response is, well, the institution is not inclusive. We're not doing enough. Right? I want to say something like, if we are not able to instill within our children a capacity to function at a level that is competitive in these elite venues, we will not have true equality. Do you really think that affirmative action abetted inclusion initiatives that count heads and get the numbers up, but that don't address the underlying function, is a path to equality? No, it's not. It's a path to permanent patronage. It's a clientelism argument. It is not a good substitute for mastery over those skills to play a political card which induces a sympathetic response from administration, because that's the easiest path. The easiest path would be to say, don't worry, we're going to bend over backwards, we're going to get a few more in, don't worry, don't worry, don't worry. The hard path is A, saying something that's true but that is unpalatable. Functioning is disparate by race, and it will not change unless we actually address the objective circumstances that are producing people, some of whom are able to do the calculus course in the applied math department and others who are not. And not enough blacks are getting that developmental exposure and enhancement of their human capacity so as to be able to meet our diversity and inclusion. That's hard work. That would be hard. Just saying the fact of it is hard, and doing something about it is harder still. Much easier is this dance that we engage in, this ritual that we enact, this self-flagellation that these institutions are inclined to, in which you say, oh, don't worry, don't worry, don't worry, and yet the real business of the university continues on. Okay? So that, in my mind, is not equality. Okay? In my mind, it's not equality to have the jails overflowing with black felons. Let me just say it one more time. People who have broken the law, people who have stolen, people who have hurt other people. The jails are not full of innocent, nonviolent drug offenders who've been scooped up by racist cops. The jails are basically full of people who are dangerous, contemptuous of social order, and a threat to their neighbors, especially their black neighbors.
Well, well, well. Isn't that something interesting? So here we have Glen Loury, who's a noted professor at Brown University and a public intellectual who is coming out, who's finally saying something that a lot of people have been saying for some time, which is really a very conservative, although I certainly think by no means is he considered a conservative, but a very conservative ideology, which is that if you are not taking responsibility for yourself and your children, their ability to function in these institutions, but I go beyond that, to function well in life is severely diminished. And we have to acknowledge that. And that is not the fault of white people, which he acknowledges here. And I'm glad to hear him do that. However, I will say this. I am personally very disappointed, extremely disappointed in the quality of thinking of our public intellectuals. I don't mean Black, I mean our public intellectuals and the quality of our public discourse. Because what is odd to me is that while Glen Loury, as an example here, is lamenting all of the issues that he can see, at least from the university side, that are presenting from the Black community, he lacks apparently an understanding of why this is happening and where, most importantly, this comes from. Because if you understood where it comes from, then you maybe could stop it. So just knowing that it's happening without any understanding of why it's happening and where it begins and where it comes from leaves, I can assume, someone like Glen Loury extremely frustrated, because either he does know and won't say, or he truly in earnest has no clue why Black people are in this situation. And this is what makes me depressed. I mean, absolutely depressed about what is happening with our public intellectuals, that they seem to just be able to identify a problem, but they're woe at a solution because they have no idea. Just problems showed up in the atmosphere, came from the air. Maybe it's airborne, who knows? But there's a problem and nobody knows from whence it has come. One of the lines that I love from one of my favorite movies, As Good as It Gets, when Mr. Udall was trying to date the woman in the movie and he was talking with Simon about it, and Simon was supposedly going to give him some advice about how he was going to go over there and get his girl. And he's telling him everything. And he said, I thought you people were supposed to be smart and intelligent. I'm drowning and you're describing the water. That's what's happening here. According to Glen Loury, Black people are drowning and all they're doing is sitting at a conference at a table in a row describing the water. Well, I can help them. I have an idea, and maybe I'm wrong, but I certainly at least have an idea. I've yet to hear that from them on what's going on with Black people and exactly where it comes from. Let's see what Glen has to say.
So here we are with the jails overfull. There are too many people in prison in the United States. I've written a whole book about this. There are too many Black people in prison in the United States. It's the new Jim Crow? Oh, I see. It's America's way in the 21st century of reenacting the old American drama of plundering Black bodies by corralling them because there's contempt for their humanity. No, it is not. And pretty much everybody knows that it is not. Anybody who lives in a city knows that it is not. They know what the character of the threats are. They know what the pathological behavior of a few people who happen to belong to this group has wrought. Okay? And yet, the pablum, it's the new Jim Crow. This is just America's way of denigrating Black people yet again. Denial, a dishonest rhetoric. It's not a path to equality. You think people don't know? They know that you can shut them up by waving the bloody shirt of racism in their faces, by wagging your finger in their faces, that you can make them go silent, doesn't change the objective facts on the ground. So I have probably said as much as I should say by way of introduction. I'm furious here in my 70th year of life that a half century after the civil rights movement, when I look around at the intellectual and political leadership of my people, when I look at the persisting disparate circumstances that characterizes their social condition, and when I listen to the superficial and manipulative rhetoric that's offered up by way of explanation, I'm furious about that. I have decided that I'm going to devote myself to saying such truths as I think I may understand, notwithstanding the zeitgeist, on the theory that there are a few, and hopefully over time a few more, and hopefully over time a few more yet. I don't ever expect it to be a majority who will open up the discourse and allow some air to get in. Because we're dying over here. They're dying in Chicago. They're dying in East St. Louis. They're dying in Oakland, California. We're dying over here in these schools that are producing kids who can't read. We're dying in these jails full of these young men whose humanity never had a chance to reach its full extent. You're going to blame white people for that? Well, you certainly can do it. And by the way, there are a fair number of white people who will pat you on the back for doing it. They'll give you awards for doing it. They'll make you into a star. They'll make you rich for doing it, for blaming them for the failures in your own community. Yeah, there are failures in our community. I haven't even started talking about raising children. I haven't started talking about the conditions of family life. Okay, oh, no, we're not supposed to talk like that. That would be blaming the victim, wouldn't it? Asking people to raise their children is blaming the victim?
Well, I'm here to heed the call. Glen asked for people to come and open up the discourse and let some air in. And that's exactly what I want to do. I want to open up the discourse and let some air in. The problem is very simple. First of all, and you said you didn't even want to start talking about how people are raising their children. To be honest, that is the only thing to talk about. That is the only thing that is at issue in this situation, is that we are raising dysfunctional children who then do exactly what they should be doing, what they're programmed to do, which is they go out into the world and enact that dysfunction upon all of us until they get caught and end up in some terrible circumstance for which, again, we are probably paying for. At the end of the day, where did this come from, Glen Loury? Unfortunately, the problem is you. You are part of the problem here. Because you, as far as I can tell, and I have watched your podcast, I've seen your show. So I'm not saying I'm a devotee, but I am not altogether unfamiliar with your conversation and this so-called, the logical middle, which you're trying to represent. In the end, it comes down to this. These failed ideas of liberalism, the idea that a man is not important in a family. I just heard somebody say that last week. It's crazy. That a man is not important in a family, and that there's some advantage to women for raising children without men, and that they can never be condemned because the single mother, under no circumstance, she is the, tried and true, and we must protect Black women at all costs. First of all, I am a Black woman, and I certainly want to be protected. I don't want harm to come to me or to anyone else. I don't wish harm on people. That is a psychopathic way to think. But to say that people can live without any level of correction and that the society can't have a standard based on what we know to be the best outcomes doesn't mean these outcomes are a guarantee, but it does mean we know they are the best outcomes. You have the best chance of raising a productive and successful child inside of an intact nuclear family. That is just a fact. I'm sorry that that's the fact. If that is something that is difficult for you to understand or to deal with, I'm sorry that you are going through that. However, we can't change the facts to personally help you out of this situation. So as he's sitting there banging his hand on the table, and so they dying in Chicago and they're dying in St. Louis and in all of the places of God. I mean, it was really, that was doom and gloom. All of that, and I don't doubt that it's all true, but it is true because people like you bought hook, line, and sinker all of the liberal lies, all of the secular liberal lies, and said that there was no order to life, There was no rhyme or no reason. That man was God unto himself and could make up the rules for himself as he went along. And now you're angry because it's failed and it's failing. And you don't want to say it is failed. At least you haven't said that this is the cost of the failure. And in fact, your part in it, because you have been one in the academy and elsewhere who has absolutely put on the mantle of these lies and has been able to believe that these things could help empower people when all they did was make people dysfunctional and make their lives destructive. And anybody who had the unfortunate circumstance of having to interact with them had the misfortune of this level of destruction. It is absolutely terrible. So I'm glad to see that you are open, that you are opening the conversation. You want other people to join the conversation, and you want some air, maybe the air of wisdom, maybe the winds of logic and perspective can blow through. I am all for that, and I hope you make it to the other side. But first, sir, first, you are going to have to understand this did not happen by happenstance. This is not an accident. This is the construct of a secular liberal lifestyle, which was foisted upon many of us by the academy, the very academy for which you have put your life's work in, has forced it upon us by the academy that has absolutely failed you and your so-called, who you call your people, which I think we're all each other's people, specifically as Americans, but okay. Who you call your people has had a devastating impact on, and I am waiting, and I will be here to support you and cheer as soon as you get ready to rebuke them. Please let us know, because we want to be front and center when you rebuke them. I want to know about it. I want to watch. Please remember to like, share, subscribe, click the notification button so you know that the next time I'm dropping a video. Thank you so much for watching this video and visiting my channel. Love to see you here. Can't wait till you come back and watch another video. You have a wonderful night. Bye-bye.